The cleanup is happening now after the floods, even as there's still the threat of heavy rains and possibly more flooding in Vermont, in the Hudson Valley, and here in the central Adirondacks. So people are taking stock of what they can fix and what may be just gone. We travel to the hardest hit part of the North Country, Long Lake, on today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Kenny Drugs, now offering a new mobile app to help patients better manage prescriptions for themselves and their family. More at kennydrugs.com. And Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, July 14th. First up, the State Department of Environmental Conservation has issued a high water advisory because of the recent heavy rains across the region. That means hikers are urged to avoid using trails near waterways and high elevation trails for the time being. The DEC says current trail conditions across the Adirondack Park are extremely wet, which can pose risks to hikers, including falling, losing footing on slippery rocks, and hypothermia in wet conditions. Streams and rivers are running high and fast, with swift waters that can be very dangerous to people trying to cross them. And more thunderstorms are forecast for the Adirondacks into the weekend. High elevation trails also have thin soil, and sliding boot treads can erode soil and damage sensitive vegetation. Hikers are advised to check the Adirondack backcountry information web pages for updates on trail conditions, seasonal road closures, and general recreation information for the Adirondacks, particularly in the wake of the recent flooding. The longtime Malone Village police chief plans to retire later this year. According to the Malone Telegram, Christopher Primo has led the department for 12 and a half years. Village trustees approved his retirement on Monday. Primo told the Telegram he decided to step down because of the constant stress of the job and changes in the criminal justice climate over the last couple years. He said it's also become a lot harder to hire people who want to be police officers. Primo's planned retirement date is September 14th. Construction crews are still working to reopen Route 28N between Long Lake and Newcomb. Many of you saw photos on social media of that road just shattered by flash floods. There's been a big push this week to clean up communities in the central Adirondacks that were hit by severe flooding Monday night. Emily Russell spoke with people in Long Lake dealing with damage left in the wake of the flood.
There's a little white house with green shutters in Long Lake. It's where Val Galvani has lived for more than 20 years. She was home Monday night when it started to pour.
My son had come earlier and he saw the creek back here. He said, "Mom, that creek is going to overflow." And I'm like, oh my God.
She thought he was just being overprotective. But the creek behind her house kept rising. So her neighbors up the hill, the Hosleys, came down and got to work.
All the Hosley boys, their children, their nephews, they were here digging trenches. And they kind of really had things under control. And then Shaw Pond must have burst. And there was a deluge of water, like insane.
Shaw Pond is less than a half mile up the road. It's not exactly clear what led to that deluge of water. Some say a beaver dam broke and clogged the culverts, sending the pond water down Route 28 and funneling it towards Galvani's home.
What usually is a grass in a pretty yard was a lake.
That's Trisha Hosley, who lives just up the hill from Galvani. Hosley waded through the water and into Galvani's home. It hadn't flooded the inside yet, but Hosley and others worried that if it did, it could destroy Galvani's belongings on the first floor.
What can we get up? And so she said, pictures. I want to save my pictures. And she started pointing to bottom drawers of the desk. And so we, ripping out drawers and putting them up on dressers.
Others helped put clothes and furniture up high and into the second floor. Hosley says once they left Galvani's home, the water had risen even more.
I mean, now it's like waist deep from like the front of her house to the garage. We walked towards her garage, which is a little uphill, and then back to my house. Even that is just so scary.
Hosley says the water was colder than she thought it would be. After she got Galvani set up in her house, Hasley headed into town. Her husband and brother-in-law own a few properties in Long Lake, including a big garage in the center of town.
See the windows? That was standing water when the whole thing happened.
So like 3 or 4 feet?
Yeah, I'd say 4.
It's a few days after the flood. All the water has receded now, but Hasley walks me around the back of the garage. There's always been a stream back here, but during the flood, it turned into a torrent of water and debris. So we're looking at a massive pile of, like, it's not even branches, it's trees.
It's all logs and trees, and, like, it's such a mess.
It's a mess inside the garage, too.
You can see what Mother Nature did.
Pat Benton shines a flashlight on the muddy floors and the jumble of stuff inside the garage. Benton rents this place as a storeroom for her antique shop up the road. I ask her what it was like when she first saw the place after the flood.
I looked at it and I said, okay, girl, you can do this. And I thought of everybody else suffering too, and I thought, okay, we're okay.
Nobody was hurt. Some of the antiques are salvageable. And today, the community is turning out. A whole team of folks is here helping Benton clean and sort it all. Climate change is making storms more severe and the weather less predictable, which Benton says should be one of the takeaways from this moment.
I hope this has kind of been a wake-up call locally for all of us. And when you see that devastation and what Mother Nature can do, moving huge pieces of concrete, there was a building over there, it's gone. We need to pay attention.
The flood ripped up roads and bridges in the central Adirondacks and destroyed a small dam in Long Lake. Repair crews have been working all week throughout the region, trying to bring a sense of normalcy back. But for some folks, floods like this can change lives. In just hours, Val Galvani's home of more than 2 decades filled with 3 feet of water, changing it forever.
There's my sweet little kitchen I loved. I loved my kitchen.
Galvani walks me through her home. Her fridge is now tilted at an angle. The floor is caked in mud.
I had a sweet pantry in my dining room where we had all our family events. And
Galvani has 2 sons in town, so this home was a place for them to gather.
yeah, and I have grandchildren that love to be here, and they call me Go-Go. And I always want to go to Go-Go's house. So
Now that house is being sifted through and emptied out. Galvani will move into one of her son's rental units in Long Lake. There's a GoFundMe site that's exceeded its $50,000 goal for Galvani. She says she is so grateful for this community and for the fact that her home is still standing.
it wasn't a tornado. My house is here. I probably won't be saved, but that's okay. You know, it's okay, but it's a deep, deep loss no matter what.
Galvani says she loved this house so much that she'd say goodbye to it when she'd go out of town. She longed for this place when she was away from it. But as we're saying goodbye, standing in the mud on her back porch, Galvani says really it's Long Lake that's her true home. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Long Lake.
There are very dramatic photos from Long Lake on our website, ncpr.org. We have more news there all the time and through the weekend, and you can also find our healthcare survey there. Take a few minutes this weekend to tell us your experiences with healthcare in your neck of the North Country. It'll help us better report a series we'll be doing this fall about healthcare. That's our healthcare survey, and you can find it right on the main page, ncpr.org. Music today by Ben Cato of J and B Children of Canton. Have a great weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.